Good morning. My name is Leonardo Angelone, and I serve also at NIDA with the Office of Translational Initiatives and Program Innovation. We are with the Office of the Director, and we oversee mostly different programs that are really the focus of our office is translate work that is done in basic research, so that comes up from work funded by programs of John in terms of translation and then ultimately products that go to market. Just a little bit regarding small business. It's a congressionally mandated program, and all federal agencies that have a budget of over $100 million are required to participate to the small business program. And they're required to set aside specific funds. So you're not actually competing with the research allocations. This is a 3.2% allocation for small business, and federal agencies, they have actually a budget of over $1 billion, including NIH. They actually also have another program, which is the Small Technology Transfer Program, where they allocate at 0.45%. Now, those seems to be small numbers, but for NIH, that's about $1.3 billion just last year. So it's quite a good sizable amount. These are some of the companies that were funded by the small business. And as the SBIR likes to call it now, is the seed program, the fund of first resort. And why that's of interest? Well, because that's non-diluted funds. So there is no equity involved if you have a small company. It's not a loan, it's grant, you receive the money. Also, and some people don't know that, but if you receive small business funds, you are then automatically eligible to receive sole source contract with federal agencies because you own your data rights for 20 years. So the work you develop, then you can have contracts with all federal agencies with all their budget on their product to continue developing that product. So that's a great advantage. And this is really the core of the, if you will, United States. And the goal of the program is really to continue research, but also to develop commercialization. So it's both. So when you think about SBIR, it's both the technical feasibility and it is the commercial. And we always recommend when you have an idea, it's not just about can you build a product, but also should you build a product? Are you going to have somebody using it, and are you going to have somebody willing to pay? Because if not, you can have a nice gizmo, but forget it. There's no point to developing. So this is the current active portfolio of our medical device. You will see part of the neuromodulation. We do fund some of active projects in terms of the neuromodulation. And this is seen from a perspective of currently just the goal is FDA approval. That's not really the goal of our program. The goal is to ultimately get to patients and get reimbursed. That's an ideal goal. We're not there yet. Especially in our area, in the area of SUD, reimbursement is yet to come in many different areas. But one of the reasons why we present a program like this is because the message is we see more and more in our areas the development of platforms where you think to neuromodulation and if you think to other areas, think about insulin, think about even DBS for Parkinson or others. You start to see platforms where you have a device that would detect physiological data. Then you have software, typically AI-based software, that elaborates that data to then inform your treatment. So more and more you think about physiological closed-loop systems. And that's what we start to see more and more here. And that's why we like to represent our portfolio in this way. So where we have a series of companies developing physiological monitoring wearables and AI-based solutions and treatments, including digital therapeutics, including neuromodulations and others. And of course, there is some in vitro diagnostics, which is part of the portfolio, but is one of the components. Some of the funding opportunities in the SBIR. So overall, there will be investigator-initiated opportunities. We call it the omnibus. I'm going to present some of the funding opportunities that are run by NIDA. Our recommendation, usually if you have a small business and if you are interested in funding opportunities, if you see something that fits your project and it is proposed by NIDA, we always recommend to point to that because you will have a panel that has the expertise and chances are that your application will have a better outcome in terms of closer expertise to what you are developing. This is one opportunity which is focused on FDA-regulated products, drug development, and medical devices. It's broad technologies, including neuromodulation products. Is for SBIR and STTR. The next due date is August 13, unless you have an application ready. Well, you can email me today. We can have a call tomorrow. Or if not, the next due date is February. And the budget for SBIR is $400,000 for phase 1 and $3 million for phase 2. Typical timeline is 1 year for phase 1 and 3 years for phase 2. As a reminder, for a phase 1 SBIR, it's really proof of concept. You don't need preliminary data. It's really the idea generation and it's high-risk idea. You don't need letter of support. You don't need a clinical trial. It's really a proof of concept, establishing technical and commercial feasibility. Once you have done that, typically recommended engaging FDA. Once you have done that, you move to the research and development phase. That's your phase 2, your $3 million component. Another solution that this is a funding opportunity that was published a couple of weeks ago. Deadline is December. Here we are now focusing on solutions that go beyond just the opioid use disorder or the stimulant use disorder. So we're looking at health consequences for drug use. And so recognizing that you may have health consequences that not necessarily lead to addiction, think to overdose, think to brain damage due to overdose, think to wounds due to Xalexine use, just to give a couple of examples. Think to endocarditis due to drug use. The typical solutions, again, in the case of endocarditis, there are antibiotics, but the typical course is take antibiotic in hospital settings just does not work for the population using drugs. And so the request and the call is for solutions that may be adapted. We don't need new solutions, novel solutions. There can be solutions already existing in the market. Here we look at innovation, really in the pure sense as something that is novel times commercialization. So it's something already existing, but now the innovation comes because it's a new population, it's a new market. Similar budget, similar condition in terms of phase 1 and phase 2. And here I mentioned there is always the possibility for investigator-initiated proposals. That's the omnibus solicitation 3 times a year. This is reviewed by the Center for Scientific Review, different panels, and same budget conditions. Just wanted to spend some time in a new program. Well, it's not that new now. We actually launched this program last time I used a mask to present. It was March 2020. We presented the program to the IC directors 2 weeks before the shutdown. After that, there was a lot of change. The idea behind this program was that for certain conditions, certain devices that were really unique, mostly de novos and PMAs, but also some 510Ks that really required some clinical, additional clinical studies. Providing funding, while always certainly welcome, was not sufficient. And so there was something that we could do in addition to that. And so we could provide additional resources in terms of mentorship, in terms of business development support, consulting. There was already existing another program, we call it the CASIM program, Blueprint Neurotherapeutics for Drug Development. And so we proposed, and this was supported by different institutes. There are 10 institutes participating, NIDA, National Institute of Biomedical Engineering, Neurological Disease, Mental Health, and others. And the program, here you will see kind of an overview of the structure of the program, is really to support products that start from that completed basic research, a typical R01 type of research, but does not necessarily imply that you have done an R01. It could be a small company. They have done basic research and ready to go to translation. And we started to support these projects either at an incubator level. Maybe you need to still optimize the products. You may have not identified specifically the indication. You may not be ready to do your first in human studies, or you have not your completed product ready for bench testing. So that's the incubator component, the seeding and optimizer. Or you're ready to go into your first in human studies in the translator, more traditional UG3 and U44. Again, this is somewhat unique, is a complementary to the other programs that you have seen, is for certain studies that are particularly challenges, mostly de novo or PMAs, where you do need additional resources. And the uniqueness of that is that you will receive, in addition to the budget from NIH, you will receive resources listed below. So we have vendors that are contracted by NIH, PPD providing resources for clinical trial and regulatory support, and actually the medical, there is a vendor for biocompatibility studies and additional business development. So it's a resource checklist at the moment of the application. You ask for resources that you need. You're not required. Of course, if you don't request any of the resources, then maybe this is not the program needed. Maybe another program may be a better fit. And so far, we have funded a few projects, both in the optimizer space and the translator. We have neuromodulation project, we have diagnostic project, and others. Just a note about the incubator, the seed and the optimizers. These are run by two hubs. One is at Mass General Hospital, and one is with the Johns Hopkins and with the Howard University combined. The application process is a little bit leaner. It's not like a typical grant application. So far, the feedback from the first phase, you submit a white paper, is pretty, you receive an invitation within a month. The funding then is take a few months after that. But always we encourage to reach out to the program of the institute that may support your study, whether it's NIDA or others. And I know some of you have reached out to not only to NIDA, to other institutes, and already applied to this program. And so one note is that as one of the activities, and I know April will also talk about the TAP program, we realized that in order to be effective and really in order to be successful in bringing the products from small business companies to market, we must work with other federal agencies. And inevitably, we see small business companies, they somewhat want to talk with us, but certainly do not want to talk with the FDA, and even less they want to talk with payers. We take advantage of programs that exist, and they are actually run by FDA. We launched some pilot programs with FDA as well, where not only companies go through the pre-submission program with the FDA, but they engage payers through the early payer program. Several of our companies already have talked with payers through this program, at least 15 of them. They talked during their phase 1 project. So they talked with payers before they start their clinical trial, which is somewhat counterintuitive. You think that, you need to have data. And it's a voluntary program on both sides, and the expectations are not high in terms of, obviously, payers are not going to say, yes, we're going to support this project. But these payers are part sometimes of the innovation office of whether it's Blue Cross, Aetna, or Cigna, And they provide feedback, and whatever feedback they provide informs the company on maybe an endpoint they may consider while they set up the clinical trial. And what we observe is sometimes even just planning for a clinical trial that on a simple case is 3 years instead of 2 years and allows to collect more data down the road, helps the company, avoids that you have to repeat the trial just because you have to do 1 more year, and saves taxpayer money. Because on the NIH side, again, the goal is not to have FDA approval. The goal is to get the product to market. So we encourage that conversation not only with the FDA, but with payers whenever possible. And we do that. This is a paper that we published recently with our FDA colleagues, just provides some summary of some of the programs ongoing, again, early payers and others. So, of course, we encourage the breakthrough device designation, which now in the latest guidance have specific wording with respect to the opioids. And we do see the companies take advantage of that. And even though CMS does not longer support automatic reimbursement for breakthrough devices, we do still see an advantage to having the breakthrough device labeling from investors, from marketing, quite simply, from the fact that you always can advertise that you have something that is FDA labeled. And also from a process point of view, the fact that breakthrough does allow you a sprint interaction. And we have seen improvement. We heard from companies that through their breakthrough, they can engage, and they have seen this faster feedback from the FDA, and they have seen an improvement in process because CDRH has actually improved the process within the breakthrough. So always encourage whenever is applicable, which in the area of opioid use disorders, substance use, chances are you have high chances of doing that. And if all of this is overwhelming because, oh, I'm still doing research, I'm not really ready for a small business, I just wanted to conclude by advertising so our office is Translation Initiative and Program Innovations. One of the programs that we run is challenges and prize competitions. One of the challenges that we have is the Startup Challenge. Deadline is September 3rd. The Startup Challenge, we provide mentorship, 6 months mentorship to teams. They are interested essentially to possibly entertain the idea of starting a startup. We don't expect that all the teams that go through the Startup Challenge will have an SBIR at the end or will have a startup. But we do spend 6 months. I personally mentor 2 or 3 teams every year. I've mentored teams in the area of neuromodulation. I've seen one of my mentees here. Teams do receive at the end a cash prize of $10,000. I like to say that, yes, that's nice. I think the value is really the time that we spend. And what we do, essentially, the teams are invited to really present their idea. We require to have their commitment in terms of time. We require 3 people. And we spend time in evaluating the idea. We're evaluating the market, break down the composition of the team, the expertise, and see whether the idea is worth from a point of view of the market. Is there a market? Is there a competition? And provide resources and tools, if you will. You can see it as a 6 months long technical assistance. Some of these teams move on to build a company and eventually are successful company. I've seen other investigator and team that after that, they decide, you know what, I like my area in research and I will continue to do research, but I learned a lot and go back. So if you are interested, the application process is really not that burdensome. It's a video and it's 3-4 pages for the idea. September 3rd, feel free to contact me. If you are interested, this is my email. Thank you very much.